whoever you are, wherever you may be, this is a story for you, for all those endowed with the spirit of a vagabond. We take a long, rugged journey to the land of the largest Indian tribe in these United States. And you'll see white men who have devoted their lives to comfort and save them. You'll understand why it's a tragedy for these Indians to live in one of the most incredibly beautiful valleys in the world.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Vagabond. Bill Burritt speaking. Now, I was just reading a copy of one of my favorite magazines, Arizona Highways. I like it for a couple of reasons. First of all, the beautiful color pictures and, of course, the stories about this vast, beautiful state of Arizona and the Southwest. And, of course, our story on Vagabond concerns the Southwest and Arizona. Two things: people and a beautiful place. Let me show you on our map. Here is the great state of Arizona. North of Flagstaff and stretching across the northern part of the state of Arizona live the Navajo Indians. Now, they are, of course, probably the true vagabond because they travel. They're nomads. They go from one area to another, and they live in a vast area of land that is almost inaccessible to the white man except by jeep and helicopter or airplane. So I know you're going to enjoy our story on Vagabond.
Farther along the road at the town of Chambers, or perhaps we should say at the building of Chambers, because this gas station is about all there is of the place, we turn off once again and take a last look at the smooth, easy-riding cement highway. Because for the next several hundred miles, the roads are unpaved and they're dusty. Completely surrounding our little cloud of dust, however, we begin to get glimpses of the breathtaking beauty we have yet to see. From Chambers, Arizona, we proceed over an uncharted route to the town of Chelly, the gateway to Canyon de Chelly National Monument, where we meet Superintendent John Aubuchon. Canyon de Chelly is one of the more than 170 areas administered by the National Park Service. In addition to its natural wonders, it's the ancestral home of the Navajo Indians, and was for 1,000 years or more the dwelling place of the ancient Pueblo tribes. Over 400 ancient ruins are located here, of which the White House ruins are the most famous. They are all that remain of the cliff dwellers who lived here about 1000 AD. Canyon at this point is 500 feet of sheer walled rock. A mile-long trail, which is being explored by a hardy group, takes you to the bottom where you can explore the details of this ancient American civilization. Fantastic as it may sound, the cliff-dwelling Indians actually lived in those homes embedded in the rocks. Some of the rocks themselves are more than 200 million years old, formed by the wind and the river and the rain. On this rock, you can almost see the swirling wind itself, solidified for the ages. The girls now are looking out over Canyon del Muerto, the Canyon of Death, where the Navajos never enter because of many of their ancestors were slain there by the Spanish. In contrast to the Valley of Death, the girls visit this area called Beautiful Valley. One points because in the distance, she thinks she sees a large group of people. However, when the girls reach the spot, no one is there. Suddenly, On the other side of the hill, they hear a rumble. Then over the hill they come. No, they're not wild Indians. They're just a group of boys and girls from the YMCA and the YWCA in Whittier, California. You see, once a year they come here to spend a week or 10 days to learn the ways of the Navajo people and to live with the Navajo youngsters. During the trip, the Whittier children invite the Navajo boys and girls to visit them in the summer, thereby promoting goodwill between both races. During game period, White Hand and Red Hand join as the children gather in a large circle with the Whittier children in the center doing some Indian dances. Say, look at those Whittier warriors whoop it up. The young Navajo girls seem to enjoy watching as the boys go on the Indian warpath. Michelle here never saw her boyfriend dance like this before. Both the Indian boy and the American boy enjoy what they see. The whole purpose of this and similar programs is very simple: to teach the children when they're young that no matter what the pigment of the skin, the blood in all men flows the same. The joys, the sorrows of the earth is the common bond of all humanity. And as the Whittier children leave and bid farewell to their friends, another bus pulls in. Now, who can this be? Well, actually, it's another group of young people who in a different way have come to achieve the same purpose of brotherhood. Ken Grant, Minister of Youth in the San Marino Community Church of California, is greeted by Dr. and Mrs. Joseph Gray of the Presbyterian Church and Mission at Chelly. You see, each year Mr. Grant has brought his group all the way to Arizona to work on the mission and beautify the grounds by building fences and seeding the ground and, of course, clearing the area. Everyone joins in the swing of things. The mission church has 145 members, most of whom are Navajo Indians. In addition to Sunday school for the children on Sunday, there are English services in the morning and a Navajo service in the afternoon. This indeed the true spirit of brotherhood. Many Navajos still believe in their idol gods, in the medicine man who influences and sings over the sick. Considering the strength and longevity of the old Navajo culture, the Christian missionaries here have made great progress in the relatively short 45 years that they have preached the gospel. The Indians who break with the old religion become Christians are marked people. However, as each generation becomes more educated and familiar with the ways of modern life, the old ties grow weaker and weaker. It's to be hoped for, worked for, and prayed for that someday both the red man and the white man will become fully integrated with one culture and one religion. Now our party breaks up into two parts. One half goes by automobile, while the other half goes by plane. To many, Canyon de Chelly is even more inspiring than the Grand Canyon. Many Navajo families make their homes in the canyon bottom, where they have small farms. so many landmarks. Spider Rock on the right, where Indian legend says the Spider Woman brings the bones of bad children. During the Civil War at Canyon del Muerto, the Canyon of Death, after much fighting, Colonel Kit Carson rounded up all the Navajos in an effort to stop raids on the towns and the ranchos. Incidentally, visitors who come here can take the same plane ride in Pete Balcom's plane as a part of a special 3-day trip which he makes arrangements for. On a clear day, the jagged rock of El Capitan, which was named by Kit Carson himself, which marks the entrance to magnificent Monument Valley, is visible for hundreds of miles. And now, we're in the heart of Monument Valley. Towering cliffs, mammoth shadows. No man yet born has ever set foot upon this isolated plateau, appropriately called No Man's Mesa. Navajo Mountain in the background, where the muddy Colorado and the San Juan rivers meet. Although from above, many of these sites, such as this natural arch, may seem miniature in size, actually they're hundreds of feet wide and high. And as the passengers in our plane prepare to join the rest of the party, they realize that if man himself had wanted to build monuments of rock, he could never improve on the job nature has done.
You know, it's wonderful to see youngsters of two different races, actually, the white and the red, playing together and learning about each other's way of life. Now, we're going to go further into this vast and beautiful land, including Monument Valley, and visit and see some more of how the Navajo lives on the second half of Vagabond.
The approach to Monument Valley by automobile is just as impressive, if not more so, than the approach by air. In the distance, Round Rock looks just like a castle silhouetted against the flaming sky. The Navajos in the valley live in homes of mud and clay called hogans. Old-fashioned methods still predominate in the farmland, but some modern machinery is being put into use. The land in general, unfortunately, is very poor for farming. The automobile party finally rolls by dramatic El Capitan and arrives at the Goulding Ranch to join the rest of the group. Now, Mr. Goulding has an amazing story. He's lived in this trading post for many years. He knows the Navajo Indians as well as any other living white man. Another visitor at the ranch whom our crew met and who incidentally gave the boys some expert advice on how to take first-rate pictures was the famous still photographer Joseph Munch. His work has appeared in the best pictorial magazines, including Arizona Highways. Probably the greatest story of human sacrifice and devotion in this area centers around the mission of the Seventh-day Adventists. At the only school in the valley, one full-time teacher instructs both the American and the Navajo children in the 3 R's. Going to school in Navajo land. Although many of the Navajos have accepted the white man's educational and medical help, most of the 60,000 Indians in this area have remained the same generation after generation. Approximately 5,000 Navajos live around Monument Valley in scattered hogans. They're a solitary people. They live on a poor diet of corn and mutton. And their great tragedy is that they live in a land that's unbelievably beautiful, but horribly unproductive. Their hope, their salvation rests not only with courageous people such as the Seventh-day Adventists, but even more important, with their own children who must be taught the value of freedom and knowledge. Here we see Mrs. Gwen Walter of the mission actually at work out in the field, taking care of the sick and the needy. Although they are generally fat, Navajo babies suffer from malnutrition because of their restricted diets. From the Jeep, Mrs. Walter can phone by shortwave radio to her husband, the elder Marvin Walter, at the mission. This shortwave radio is the only means of communication the Walters have with the outside world. The Walters, who opened their mission and clinic in 1950, arranged for the Navajo woman and her child to be treated at the clinic. And each morning, the Indians, both young and old, wait patiently to be treated by the visiting white doctor. Slowly but surely, they're being taught not to distrust the white man's medicine. Even some of the tribal medicine men come to the clinic for treatment. The nearest permanent doctor in Monument Valley is over 100 miles away over that dusty road. Mrs. Walter, a registered nurse, and her husband provide the only medical care available to the thousands of people who live in the valley. Occasionally, some doctors, many of them from Southern California, visit for a few days at the mission. Unfortunately, many are needed, but only a few heed the call. Mr. Walters even built a cozy cottage nearby for visiting doctors and their family to live in and see the beauty of this valley. And Mr. Walter informed us that he not only hoped more doctors would spend a few days at Monument Valley helping these needy people, but he pointed out that in addition to being of service, the doctor or dentist could also enjoy the scenic wonders. We're now heading for the most dramatic part of our trip as we journey deep into the heart of Monument Valley for a closer look at the gigantic odd-shaped rock formations such as Mitchell Butte and Mitten Monument. Mitten Monument, shaped like the back of a mitten. It was here that John Ford made the movie She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, starring John Wayne. Further along the road, we see the formations of the King on the Throne and Castle Butte. On wheels, this rugged terrain can only be reached by a Jeep with four-wheel drive. And a capable driver like Jack Sleeth is a mighty handy man to have around on a trip like this. Contrary to popular belief, the Navajo Indians are not descendants of the ancient cliff dwellers who lived in this region. They're relative newcomers to the Southwest, having come here from northern Canada over 3,000 years ago. The Indian, of course, was truly the first American. In 1861, Kit Carson rounded up more than 6,000 Navajos, marched them to Fort Sumner, New Mexico. Later, they were permitted to return to their own land. They're a pastoral people who depend on their flocks as much as their farm crops. Their main meal consists of mutton, corn, and fried bread. Long recognized as one of the most intelligent of all Indian tribes, they are by far the best known hand loom weavers in the entire country. Their carefully woven rugs range in price from $10 to even $1,000 and more. Despite many handicaps, such as frequent cases of tuberculosis and the deaths of many children, the Navajos managed to increase rapidly until they are now the largest tribe in the entire United States. Offhand, it would seem that the 50 million acre reservation at the four corners of Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico would be plenty of room for these 60,000 Indians. That's not the case, however. The sandy, rocky, overgrazed pastures don't provide enough food for the animals or themselves. The land is lovely to look at, but difficult to live off. Nevertheless, the Navajo, such as this Indian girl who is the daughter of one of the last great chiefs and who is passing by the Ernie Pyle Natural Bridge, will never leave their home. To show how big those stones are, maybe you can see the 6-foot man in the lower section of the arch. Understandably so, it's almost as if the Navajos have been hypnotized by the immensity, the barren beauty of Monument Valley. From structures such as these, which represent 3 Yabichai Indians and a totem pole, they seem to gain inner strength and courage. Even the necessary controls of the Federal Commission of Indian Affairs and the ravaging droughts, such as in 1951, have not been enough to drive them from their land. As Joseph Munch himself described it, it seems that in this valley the whole world spreads out before you. Here the moon sprinkles its magic upon the monuments. The heads of all the governments and all the policy makers could gather in this vast, lonely place. Perhaps they'd find a way to settle all the problems of the world. Monument Valley does that to people. And while the Navajo Indians still live here in this land of their ancestors, all of us owe it to them and to ourselves to do what we can for them. But who really knows? Perhaps here in Monument Valley they've found a greater peace than all the tribes of the world.
Well, we hope that we captured some of the color and some of the real life of the Navajo Indian. Of course, the one thing our cameras couldn't capture is the great silence of Monument Valley. And perhaps this silence is what makes the Indian so patient and so used to waiting for things. And unfortunately, through the past few years, it's been difficult for the Navajo Indian who lives in this vast tract of land to get proper medical attention or proper education. Now, if you're planning to visit the Navajo country and see it for yourself, there are a couple of tips that I'd like to pass along to you. First of all, make sure that your automobile is in very good shape. Secondly, make sure that you have reservations for one of the trading posts in which you can stay. You might write the Flagstaff Chamber of Commerce or the Phoenix Chamber of Commerce for information regarding staying in the Navajo country and visiting with the Navajo Indians. Well, if you've enjoyed seeing our story and meeting these people, then, like the Navajo, you have the true spirit of a vagabond.